Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of sinister tones, exploring songs that are ominous and actively seem like they don't want me to listen to them. We're going to dive into a band that we discovered on live stream a couple of months ago called Knocked Loose. We're going to be looking at their track Blinding Faith. They happen to have a music video for it. It is also rather new, with the music video dropping just 3 weeks ago. So let's dive into it, see what Knocked Loose is bringing to the table today. Just an absolutely filthy sounds. Okay. Bringing the halftime feel back from the opening. A massive snare with the beats turned off. I don't know, the beat. Did he disable the snare for that? Yeah, so he's turning the snare on and off, which is pretty cool. Because now it's definitely on. There's so many cool little touches that elevate it beyond the typical, like the typical hardcore stuff that's going on. Layered harshes. Alright, so I kind of knew what I was getting from Knocked Loose. Like I said, we checked them out rather recently. I remember them being very, I'm gonna use a nice technical term for this, nails on a chalkboard. um, just very aggressive sounds. And simpler music. I remember they were kind of punky. Hardcore, I suppose, would probably be the proper term for it. And yet, I still wasn't expecting the right magnitude of grit and dirt and sound and noise that they bring. And the thing is, too, like once we got to the end and we hit that really big breakdown, I was like, oh, yeah, this is those guys. So I hope I don't make that mistake again and forget what they're capable of, because I don't I don't like being surprised like that. That is just, oh, the music is so filthy. I think that's like the ultimate word for it. I don't know. Where do I start with this? I guess the verse? Is it a verse? I don't really know. The song just kind of exists. I have a tough time placing it down and categorizing what's going on in it. But it's the up-tempo part where we have the drums primarily laying down a syncopated beat between the snare and the bass kick, and we have the cymbals kind of giving us more of a four on the floor idea. It's giving us that nice rigid tempo, and then the drums and the bass and the snare can give us a syncopated groove on top of that. The part that feels very hardcore punk to me. This section also brings with it some very straightforward bass and guitar work, and on top of that, we have the screaming, and I do feel like screaming is the right word for. Normally, I would just use the generic harsh vocals umbrella term, but no, this dude legitimately sounds like he's screaming. It is wild, and it reminds me of another vocalist, and just I can't think of the whole time I was like, this sounds familiar, and I can't place it. I don't know why. If anyone else thinks they know what I'm talking about, or maybe the vocalist reminds them of something, please let me know. Um, but yeah, so I kind of view this as the point to which everything is contrasted from. It's not the entry into the song. We actually move into the track at the halftime feel of this, but it is the peak as far as intensity and speed come through, and it's also the most simple. Again, I feel like it's what everything is contrasted to or built off of. Um, and so I feel like this is just a really great place to begin the discussion. From here, we move into the halftime idea, which might be the chorus, and since we started on this, it might mean we started in the chorus, but again, I don't know. The structure, we'll get on structure in a second, I suppose. This section is really cool because there's variation on it. We approach it 3 times, I think, and each time is slightly different. The first time is the intro. We have less sound during it. I don't know if I should necessarily say less instrumentation, but we do have less sound. Maybe they have a double tracked guitar, maybe there is a double tracked bass. I don't know. Regardless, it's a thinner representation of what we'll get to later. We then do the faster hardcore punk stuff, and after that we return to this sound, but with a larger sound. There's more going on. It might just be a production thing too, but it is the full representation of what we got a taste of in the intro of the track. This is a really great way to bring this idea back, and it's a great way to introduce the song, to present us with somewhere we're going so that we have this point of familiarity once we reach it, but also to not give everything away to start with. You have room to build from here. And this is a weird song to think of building because it is full volume, max power all the time, but it does have building to it. It is this slow increase of intensity, which I think is pretty phenomenal. The third time we return to this section, we do a call and response between the vocals and these faster guitar riffs. And I thought this was pretty cool. It's the only time that the guitar is produced with any sort of additional presence in the mix. It gets a little bit of a lead tone and it gets a massive volume boost. It gets pushed to the front of the sound, replacing where the vocals were at just previously. It's also a faster lick. It reminds me something more resembling death metal than hardcore punk. It's quite possible that the two of them together creates deathcore, and this might be deathcore, but I have a real tough time hearing deathcore. So y'all can let me know if that's what's going on here. But again, we have another variation on this idea. This time, instead of filling things out, we have additional lines entirely. It completely changes the feeling of this section. And then I'm pretty sure after this point, we ditch this idea of the faster hardcore stuff and this halftime heavier concept in favor of the breakdown. Is that what this is? So our structure, we'll talk about structure in a second because I'm still trying to figure that out. This is just gnarly. It is slow. We've done another tempo reduction, although this time instead of halftime, I don't think we cut it directly in half. So we probably dropped a good 20, 25, 30 BPM, somewhere around there. And we just have this chugging, dom 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 bum 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 bum. Everything is low, played pitch wise. It feels like everything's also EQ'd to focus on the bassier side of the timbre. It's just this chugging. The notes are slower. The tempo's been dropped. The drums are playing less often. I mean, this is just how you describe breakdowns in general, but I feel like they just amplify everything. How hard should we hit each string? You know, what should the inflection on each note be? Yeah, max it out. How much slower than the rest of the song? Yeah, this should be the slowest part of the song. How much bass should we emphasize? All of it. It's like push everything to the extreme. And then, of course, like 30 seconds into this, 15 seconds into this, they decide also to throw a level of dissonance on top of it, and we just have this disharmonic static going off, just covering the whole thing in this hazy uncomfortability. At least for me, you know, some people enjoy their dissonance. Y'all know I don't. It's a texture that I appreciate, uh, but not one I enjoy hearing. And that's, yeah, they took the weight and heaviness of all this and then just ramped it up with that. To say the ending feels sinister, I think, is true from a perspective. This whole song feels sinister, not necessarily in an evil way, which I think sinister can be equated to, but just ominous. It's eerie, it's scary, it does feel antagonistic. It does not feel like it's my friend. It does not feel like it cares if I enjoy it or even if I listen to it. It simply is. And the ending leans the most into that. There's definitely an antagonistic element to a lot of this song. It is loud, it is noisy, it is big and monstrous and imposing. But just like everything else that it ramps up in that final section, I feel like it ramps up these feelings as well. There are a couple of things I want to bring up outside of the music, little individual topics. First of all, like I said, the structure, I have no idea what's going on here. It's, as far as I can tell, maybe BABAC, and then like C variation, an expansion on our halftime breakdown. It's not halftime, an expansion on the breakdown idea. Um, And that's only assuming that the intro that we start on is the chorus. Again, I don't know. When we hit the lyrics, I think that's going to really help me solidify the structure because the song just feels like it bulldozed straight through. It doesn't really feel like any section is really too different from another. It all has the same energy, the same intensity, very similar vibes. The big difference to me is what kind of time feel is the drums playing in. Other than that, it sounds like there's one continuous idea until we hit the breakdown. So I kind of view it as the more palatable beginning and then that gnarly, filthy ending. That's how I break it down. But obviously, it's a little bit more segmented than that. Um, yeah, three vocalists though. I thought it was pretty cool just to have the main vocalist and the guitarist kind of trading off lines there in like the first verse or something like that, second verse. But then right before the breakdown, we got all three vocalists, the main vocalist, the guitarist, and the bassist, all just rapid fire delivering lines, one then the other, then the other. They all have very unique harshes. We had vocal layering at one point too between the guitarist and lead vocalist. So I'm a huge fan of that. Y'all know. You give me multiple vocalists, you give me some layered vocals, I'm already there. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, just the tones of the instruments is phenomenal. I love the bass tone. Oh, and the snare. Yeah, that dude just turns it on and off throughout, whether he needs that hollow hitting a trash can kind of sound or he wants the rattle of the beads under the snare. I swear he's just I don't remember. It's been a long time since I have seen an actual snare drum in person. But I think it's just a little like metal clasp that you just kind of pull up and pull down. And when you pull up, it puts tension on the string. And when you push it down, it gives the string lax so that the beads aren't sitting against that drum head on the bottom. Um, and so it's a really simple mechanism. I guess you can just flip it real quick. Like the more that I was listening, I was like, does he even have time? Is there a free hand to do it? Because the drummer is very active. But yeah, I guess so. And I love that. It shows, I mean, I guess it's no different than changing which pickup you're using on a guitar. You know, you're just playing, you got a quick flick down to the thing, flick it back up, the little knob at the bottom of your guitar body. It's a little bit more involved. I don't think it's something you can just haphazardly flick with the palm of your hand, but yeah, it's not super out of the way either. I kind of wish more drummers would do that, but I don't know, the snare without the beads, it's an aggressive sound. It doesn't fit in everything, so I don't know. I guess I'll just be happy, sort of being impressed hearing this dude know exactly what he wants in each second, and switching up his kit to do that. Let me hit some lyrics real quick, and then we're gonna wrap this one up. All right, so this track is about somebody who loses their faith in religion, in a God. Says, I'm haunted by the spirit. I can't feel it, but I pretend. Maybe there's something inside that won't let it in, so I beg for a chance in a circle of snakes. My life consumed by faith. Yeah, so believing in this religion, and it tells you, hey, you should have this. I'm going to assume it's Christianity. You should have this connection with God, with the Holy Spirit. You should be able to feel Him inside you, have conversations. And this person doesn't. And they feel like something's wrong with them because of that. We move to verse 2, and there's a change of heart here. It says, I'll suffer here instead of biting my tongue, condemned to a life of pain until my time has come. No promise of heaven will make me march with my final breath. I deny the church. Basically, I pretended for so long, going back to verse 1, he says, I can't feel the spirit, but I pretended I did. I pretended for so long that I'm done with that. I don't believe it anymore, and nothing is going to get me to go back in that direction. The few other lines in here are a biting criticism because it's the title of the track, Blinding Faith. Another refrain says, fall in line now, bow your head. And we finish the song, Blinding Faith, fall in line, blind. I think it's a bit of a leap. He basically says, I didn't find a connection with religion, so I don't think anybody else does. They're all just blindly following like I did. I don't know about that. But I can certainly see how somebody's anger could push them in that direction, especially with the intensity and animosity in the song also representing that anger. It's definitely a song to me about somebody who feels let down by a system that they bought into and now are doing everything they can to rebel against it. It's interesting then, the song utilizes some of that animosity, but also pushes in the direction of absolute negative sound. It is, as I mentioned earlier, very intense. Definitely aiming towards a sinister sound. It's ominous, it is heavy, filthy is a word I used a couple of times. I think it paints a very specific type of anger and rage. It's also a little bit of betrayal, isn't it? And it's kind of taking all of this negativity and turning it into this sonic representation of all of that pain. Yeah, wonderful little track. Those are my thoughts. Blinding Faith by Knocked Loose. What did you think of this song? Was there anything that stood out to you? Anything you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe just have your own thoughts, opinions, or perspectives about it. Put all that stuff down in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you can find a link to Linktree. It takes you to this menu where you can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for this one, though we do have a special selection as well today. I'll also be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.